So this is going to be a very quick fly through of some of the more important effects in Cubase. I've got a Cubase session open. I've imported the speech sound. We all know what this sounds like. I've made sure after today that we are certainly looking at bars and beats, and we are in the select primary time format bars and beats, so that I can work within that framework. My lower zone activated here currently shows the editor for this sound file, and in the inspector I'm looking at hit points. I'm going to edit my hit points. I'm going to select a threshold for those hit points, quite small like that, and then I'm going to create slices, slice them up, select all of them, hit Q, and this will foolishly quantize them.
Be the best, worthy folk in so much for reading. Have been managed some thrift and new. Only smart edifying too.
But that's so I can select some effects to work in time with my tempo. So I can add inserts in the inspector for the track, but the vast majority of the time you will see inserts here in the mixer page, F3. So the effect we looked at today was a dynamic effect and was the gate.
Best worthy folk in so much. Have been managed some thrift and
this just works on audio.
Be the best, worthy folk in best, worthy folk best, worthy folk in so much for reading. Have be the best.
So there's a big difference between
best, worthy folk in so much.
Looking for peaks in the sound file.
Be the best, worthy folk in so much for reading. Have been managed some thrift and new. Only smart edifying too. Best, worthy folk in so much. Have been managed some thrift
And looking for the average.
Worthy have been
Attack time, time to open the gate, hold time, time for the gate to stay open, release time, time for it to shut the gate, range, how much of the original do you want to bleed through. The key one is obviously the threshold.
best, worthy folk in so much for reading. Have been
You will use a lot of compression. The compression also has a threshold, and that's this one here, at which point, right now, for example, what goes in equals what comes out. But gradually, to add some compression as it gets really loud, there's some automatic gain reduction.
Be the best, worthy folk in so much for reading.
Tiny amounts here, so let's make it more dramatic.
Be the best, worthy folk in so much for reading. Have been managed some thrift and new. Be the best, worthy folk in so much for reading. Have been managed some thrift.
Essentially, what is key to the compressor is this makeup gain, because here you're reducing the gain by a drastic amount, and then Cubase is bringing all that gain back up. So it's bringing your soft sounds and the compressed loud sounds back up to a full level. So you're ending up with a compressed dynamic range, but still the soft sounds in particular are much louder than originally.
Be the best, worthy folk in so much for reading. Have been managed some thrift and new. Only smart edifying.
I wonder whether that might be better better just on original speech and not some cut up speech. It's difficult to tell.
For even if they still be the best, worthy folk in so much for reading.
What you can hear when you hear the compressor working is you hear it so-called pumping, in that, particularly on speech, you hear the amplitude change. That might be better to try on the original speech sound. Let's just do that. Get rid of this. Get rid of this. Delete. Remove from pool. Import. Go again.
For even if they seldom see the best, the worthy folk...
And you can actually hear it now.
For even if they seldom see the best, the worthy folk go in so much for reading. How can we manage something brisk and new? For even if they seldom see the best, the worthy folk go in...
Need a click track over it, do we?
For even if they seldom see the best, the worthy folk go in so much for reading.
If ever you listen to football commentators, what you hear is compression, heavy compression, such that when you hear their voice, the external sound of the crowd is ducked. So you often hear these sounds going backwards and forwards, and you can just about hear that here.
For even if they seldom see the best, the worthy folk go in so much for reading. For even if they seldom see the best, the worthy folk... For even if they seldom see the best, the worthy folk go in so much.
So if we go back to something rhythmic again, and edit hit points, threshold them right down, create slices and quantize them up, we could have a look at some of the delay algorithms. So a ping pong delay. Again, if you press the button marked sync, you toggle from a time-based view to... You don't want lots of feedback. You toggle from a time-based view to bars and beats view. So now your ping pong delay will be timed in quavers. Or semi-quavers. Or triplet quavers. A high-pass filter.
Worthy folk in so much for reading. How can we manage something brisk and new? Tone smart.
Well, that's fairly self-explanatory. Mod Machine is a little bit more complicated in that it has delays, LFOs and filters. So it can be quite powerful.
Worthy folk in so much for reading.
You can certainly hear the bandpass filter in action there. You can do all sorts of distortion, but be very careful with that. We've looked already at the amp simulators.
For if they still look the best. For if they still look the best. Worthy folk in so much. For if they still look the best. Worthy folk.
It's pretty awful because they're very, very drastic EQs. And the amp rec is pretty much similar, except you select devices, cabinets, post effects, microphones, and you can put them in different positions to the cabinets. You can presumably change the order. And that sounds awful. but it might work depending on the type of music that you're working with. The studio EQ is very similar to the EQ that you get per channel here, in that you have 4 bands. The EQ can be a shelf or a low, or just a low cut, or they can all be peak filters. So normally the 2 at the ends are set as shelves and the 2 in the middle are set as peaks. And with the peaks you have a center frequency, a gain control, negative, positive, and the Q, which is the slope of the filter. So if you've got a nasty ring to the snare drum, you find that, and hopefully the frequency response will come up on this graph. No, I didn't think it was spectrum. Turn on spectrum.
Best.
So there's something around there. We could get rid of that. Again, slope it really high.
Best. Best. Worthy folk in so much.
Bypass it. Let's just get rid of those.
Best. 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 Worthy folk in so much.
Again, it's about being subtle and trying not to be too subtle here. If we lower this.
Best. Worthy folk in so much for reading. Have been managed and new.
So most of my voice, the quality of my voice is between 200 and 1K, say.
Best.
And this is your telephone voice.
Best. Worthy folk in so much for reading. Have been managed and
well, filters are more automated.
Best.
There's probably some.
Best. Worthy folk in so much for reading. Have been managed and new. Only smart edifying. Who? Best. Worthy folk in so much for reading. Have been managed and new. Only smart edifying. Who? Best. Worthy folk in so much for reading.
And that's what you would automate to go from low to high frequency. When it comes to mastering, you'll use selections of compressors. You may use de-essers or expanders. Look those up at your leisure, and you'll definitely use a limiter, which will be a hard compression.
Best. Worthy folk in so much for reading. Have been managed and new. Only smart edifying. Who? Best. Worthy folk in so much for reading. Have been managed and new. Only smart edifying. Who? Best. Worthy folk in so much for reading. Have been managed and new. Only smart edifying. Who? Best. Worthy folk in so much for reading. Have been managed and
So you would set this, never set it to 0 dB. You don't really want things actually hitting a maximum, but say something -1, -2, -3 dB. And we're doing quite a lot of amplification in order to get the GR gain reduction actually working there. Finally, your reverbs. Roomworks is a good one because the effects are fairly clear. You have cutoff frequencies and a very simple EQ for low and high, more or less of these, above or below a certain frequency. So you might want to get rid of really low frequencies. You might want to up some of the really high frequencies. Then you have a pre-delay, which is this area here. You have the size of the room. You have the actual reverb time. You have how much reflection is going to come off the walls and the width of stereo to mono that these reflections are going to pan around. So if you select also how much the walls will absorb certain frequencies, so this is how much of the high will be reflected back, which is quite a lot, and how much of the low will be reflected back. So you could just have high reverb, so you can hear just the highs, or you could have it quite woolly, this can have and be enveloped, and finally, depending on whether you use an insert or a send, this is the balance of original to the wet mix, the fully reverbed. And again, try out some of the presets, because they've really gone to town on these. And some are more special effects than others. Finally, if you're hard of hearing, like I am, things like this normally help. Again, spectrum.
Worthy folk in so much for reading.
So you can actually see some of the qualities of your sound, but the spectrum appears in quite a few of the actual plugins itself. Hope that's been useful. Good luck with the manual, and I'll make a link to this on the Blackboard.